He said, I have spent hundreds of hours preparing for this one day. Now that's a sign, that's an Olympian. And that's what MDRT is. It represents 2% of the world's population. I have spent hundreds of hours preparing for this one day. So setting up and working everything was routine. Boot campers, friends all, let's bring on with a strong, warm Trini applause. I know you might be able to hear, we'll have to unmute, but let's bring you on, Rajesh, with, you know, all the love that we can foster. Rajesh Jurbal. It's yours, my lord.
Thank you. Thanks everybody. Definitely a lot different being on Zoom doing one of these. Yeah, so hope everybody's doing good today, this morning on a Saturday, having team meetings. You guys are working hard, I see. So yeah, I got invited to do this. Hopefully I can contribute in a powerful way to your success individually and towards whatever projects you're working for in a company. Yeah, like what Mr. Trevor said, you know, I'm an accomplished athlete, but you know, the athletic stuff came from hundreds and thousands of hours of preparation and learning and studying every single day, no matter if I wanted to do it or not. But you know, to do that, you have to really identify why you're doing what you're doing. If you're doing it for paychecks, if you're doing it for just the success, or you're doing it just to put food on the table or pay your bills, you might have some success, but and you might be able to string together some success. But if you want to string it along the success throughout all areas of your life, you really have to start with why you're doing what you're doing, because that's going to give you the right perspective in order to put the effort in to do what you're doing. Whether it is if you're trying to lose some weight, you're trying to increase more sales, you're trying to move up in the corporate ladder, get your degree, maybe move, increase your income. So your perspective always drives your performance. So when I was swimming, for example, you know, I didn't know how to swim. So my perspective is I can't do this, or I'm not good at this. So I can only reach this certain level because I only have one hand. But when I put the perspective in my mind, it says, no, I could be faster. I could get better. I just haven't uncovered those areas that I needed to resolve in my mind and in my thinking, so that I can unlock myself to go and start putting the effort towards that new perspective. So I had to start with my perspective on everything, you know, and I always say, like, the problems, they're not problems, they're opportunities. So when people say, oh, I got so much problems, I got this, I got that going on, I always switch it around and say, okay, well, how can I learn from this? These are opportunities that need to be solved. Maybe they won't be solved in one day or 1 year, but they could be solved. And I just have to figure out how to solve them within me first. Because a lot of times, like in swimming, I'll go back to swimming analogy because people can understand this. It's very intimidating to go out there and swim, especially in the ocean. A lot of people don't know how to swim. They're afraid, they're scared. You know, I can't see the bottom. You know, they have all these fears. And when I go out and swim, I don't ask for the ocean to be calm or ask it to be, you know, perfect and have everything around me and never see the, you know, never always see the shore. I ask myself, how can I meet that demand? How can I rise up to that level to meet the ocean, you know? And a lot of times we're asking things to come down to our levels so that we can meet it, but we're not willing to raise our levels to meet that demand that's in front of us. So in other words, you know, we're asking a lot of things to change outside of us, but we're not asking ourselves to change inside. And as soon as you start asking yourself, how can I change? How can I raise my level of expectations for myself first, before I ask my husband, my spouse, my kids, my boss, whatever, my clients to change? How can I change? So I always ask myself that when I go out, like for swimming, I say, okay, what do I need to do in order to be able to overcome this ocean that's always constantly changing? So I developed the skills that I need, and that's day in, day out, thousands of hours, day in, day out of practicing swimming, when nobody's there. And that gives me the tools in order to raise that level when I need to raise that level. And that's the hard part, because a lot of people don't have that. They don't, because they haven't defined their why. Um, the other thing I'm really strong with is your integrity to yourself. So by definition, integrity is just being excellent, okay, in the little things, not in the big things, in the very, very little things, and when nobody's watching. Because as you guys know, you guys work as a team, and you go home, you have a team at home, you have kids maybe, and you guys are a team. You guys have to work together and figure out how to navigate life's challenges, constantly changing. So your personal integrity to yourself is your is your declaration. It should mean something to you. So whatever you do, if you're working in your job, you should produce good work. It's your personal integrity, whether you get rewarded or recognized for it. It's just you. It's your personal integrity, because what that should mean, it should say something about you. So when people come to you, they know that you're going to do an outstanding job, whether it's the littlest job ever. You're going to do an outstanding job, and they know that's your personal level of work ethic and integrity to you. So they know that you're an outstanding person. And I'll use this another now. A lot of people say, "Oh, you're not from Trinidad, you don't know the mentality, blah, blah, blah." I get that, fine. I was in Trinidad, and I see work ethic and standards different than the United States. And I see the contrast. And when I was there for 4 months working on an economic goal, a big economic goal, I saw that huge contrast in work ethic and mentality. And I said to myself, I said, okay, well, if people don't want to work, or if they're working and they're cutting corners, I can't control that. What can I control? I can control my level of integrity and my work ethic. So everything that I did it to the utmost best standards that I could do it. Whether I had the skills or not, I did it anyway to the best that I could do. And if it wasn't good enough, I did it over again. And I did it over again. And people are like, why are you doing this over and over again? It's something so minuscule. I said, no, it's my level of integrity to myself and my standards that I hold for myself. Because I say this is because when you work together as a team, if somebody's not holding their weight, the whole team suffers. So you have to sometimes you have to step up and be that leader in the smallest things, so people see like, wow, you're really working hard here, and it's something that's not important, and it inspires other people to want to be better, because nobody likes to feel like they're not doing a good enough job. And and we see that because they make excuses, all right, or they come up with reasons why that the job is not done right. So that's why I always say integrity and having your reasons why is really important. Because once you start slipping on those little compromises that we start making, it's a slow fade. I mean, before you know it, you're on autopilot, and you're not operating with high standards for yourself. And now remember, I was saying for yourself, we're not holding anybody to these standards. It's just personal standards for yourself. When you're in a team environment, for example, I'll give you a really good example. 2 weeks ago, I was working on a huge project, still working on the project, and we're in a team environment. I never met this lady personally, but we're all on, conference calls and stuff, and she wasn't holding her own. And, for about 2 months, she wasn't holding her own, and she's dragging this project out. And I said, okay, I understand what's going on here. And I said, okay, well, what do I need to do in order to help her do her job? Now, mind you, a lot of people don't want to do this, but I said, okay, if this job's going to be successful, somebody needs to step up here. And if I'm forcing her to step up for 2 months and she's not willing to do it, it goes back to what can I do? Because it really boils down to your personal integrity and your standards of how you want to operate your team and achieve the goal. So we were faced this huge challenge. Nobody knew how to do it. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to work this entire weekend. And it was a long holiday weekend. And literally I contacted about 9 different companies and talked to them over the weekend, the holiday weekend. And I became an expert over the weekend on this one little topic that I had no idea about. And was it painful? Yes, it was very painful. Was it my job? No, it was not my job. But I stepped up to become the leader because I said, okay, it's my personal standards. Am I going to not operate to the highest level that I know that I can operate at, or am I going to push that on as responsibility for somebody else? Now, the moment you do that, you put yourself at a disadvantage because now you're at the mercy of that other person producing. But if they're not producing, what do you do? So this is a way that you can move forward and regain some strength and control and power back to yourself instead of assigning it out to everybody. So I saw the problem, long story short, saw the problem, and she was still dragging her feet. So what I did is I actually emailed the entire team and I said, okay, I understand the problem. Thank you for that. I thank you for educating me. Now is your chance to get it right. And I include the whole team because what I did is I gave her a worthy calling to strive towards. And when you're in a team environment, giving people a high calling, a high level of respect, I'm talking about really high. People don't want to, they want to rise up to that occasion. Most likely they would like to rise to that occasion. They don't want to let you down. And if they don't like you, they might like somebody else on the team. So if you include the whole team, they don't want to let the team down. And she did produce because after I did that, she did start rising up to that level. And yes, it was very difficult, but she didn't want to let the team down because we all were working really hard in order to accomplish this one little thing that we were trying to resolve for 2 months. And so I always give people a really high worthy calling to rise towards when we're working in corporate or in teams and stuff like that. But that has to come from you. You have to be able to take a step back and say, okay, how can this, it's not about me anymore. It's about this project now. What are we trying to accomplish? So it takes the focus off the me, and what's in it for me. And that's where a lot of teams or a lot of people lose it because they're trying to get their personal gain. They're trying to gain their own credibility, their own voice. They're trying to gain their own influence out there. And the more I realize is like for swimming, it's not about swimming. It's not about doing it fast. It's about how can you do it for raise your level and build yourself up so that you could take the whole team with you. So that whole weekend that I worked, became the expert in that topic that I had no intentions to become an expert in. I was able to take the team and solve the problem and solve the issues and keep the project going. So that's one thing that I always touch on as far as work and then being an athlete. They all come together. It all comes together. So that's one thing. I know I'm rambling here, but hopefully I'm contributing something here. Do you have any questions?
What is your training and your day looks like with regards to in preparation for what it is you have been doing? What is it?
Training. Well, training is, well, now with everything is going crazy, but training it comes in stages. So everything comes in waves. You can't be in top form all the time, but I try to at least exercise every day if I can. Not all the time. I'm exercising every day. It's usually about an hour, an hour and a half, maybe. It depends if I'm going to do a big event, I will be training more. So it just takes more time to keep everything together. So I would get up early. I'd get up around 5:36. If it's really hot, like the summertime now, I'm up at 5:30, 6 o'clock and try to get something in. So yeah, it's training is always there because it helps me de-stress and helps me tackle all the other challenges in the world that are coming at us, So that's my training is usually swim, bike, run, Haven't swam in a couple months, but I swam maybe 3 times in like 4 months in the ocean. Um, but you know, a lot of cycling, a lot of running, but it's about an hour. Yeah.
You work,
Rajesh, good morning. And
Huh?
you work with a coach? Do you have a coach?
Oh, do I work at a coach? At the beginning, I worked with a coach, but now I self-coach myself. So I have a training plan that I saved from my last stuff, and you know, yeah, but I have a lot of mentors that are very knowledgeable. So I always ask them different things to get the information that I need, which is really important for everybody. We should all have mentors that are on different levels that are where we want to be. And I always surround myself with people who are a lot more higher than I am on the mountain, so to say, because we're all climbing this mountain. But we have to climb the mountain in order to meet those people. So I always climb the mountain continuously so I could meet those people. So I have those mentors there, those coaches. Yep.
Rajesh, good morning. And again, it's really our pleasure to have you on with us. I have one question for you. Given your situation and the circumstances, quote unquote, what fuels your passion for athletics? And I mean, at the end of the day, all of us would have our own personal challenges, but what keeps Rajesh going? I think I'm curious to find out what fuels your passion.
Yeah. Well, I pray a lot. I mean, I'm very faith-filled, strong Christian here. You know, that's what really set the catalyst for me to change my entire life around. So I always keep that number one before I even start the day. I always give thanks for everything that I have, and I pray before I even get up and start tackling this day, because that's number one to get my mind right. And you know, I always remember where I came from. I always remember how hard it was when I first started, and keeping that in my mind constantly keeps me fueled, keeps me going, keeps me hitting it harder and harder and harder. And then I remember everybody who told me, you can't do this, you can't do that, that's not possible, this is not possible. I mean, I get it every single day, and I just replay it constantly in my mind. And that's what keeps me going, you know, to keep stretching and keep working really hard. Because, you know, we get comfortable, you know, everybody gets comfortable. We have these levels that we're trying to reach in our mind. You know, if I get this job and make this certain amount of money, if I get this in my house, or if I get this car, or we lose X amount of pounds, and we reach all of us have these different levels we're trying to get to. And what happens is we reach those levels and we're like, okay, we've made it. And we're like, relax now. I got it. I made this. I got this now. And I never let that be the finishing line in my mind. I always have a new finishing line. I use that as the finishing line, as the starting line for something else. So that's what keeps me motivated.
Any questions, guys?
You guys are too easy. Oh man.
What are some of your greatest obstacles?
Hello? Anybody here?
Greatest obstacles?
Go ahead, Colette.
Good morning, Rajesh. So I looked at all your interviews. I was fascinated when Angela posted it. So I said, let me look at it. And one of the when you were speaking to your interviewer, you said you had a no excuse mentality, meaning there is no excuse. You're going to go out there and you were going to do it, which is something our boss always says. There is really no excuse for us not to succeed. And I try to tell my children that as well. You really have no excuse not to succeed. They have 2 hands, 2 feet. They have it made already. One of the other components, because apparently you have a template, you have a recipe for success, is your faith as well as your good work ethic. How do you find the work-life balance? Because you have your and you have your, you have to
Yeah.
guess, you have to speak, you have to work, you have to train. And I think
Yeah.
that is where a lot of us find our challenges. How do we balance? It is a balancing act. How
Oh,
do
yeah.
you, is it that you have a very good organized schedule? Are you rigid with your schedule, and how do you balance?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, I concentrate on my outcomes. Everybody has a to-do list. So I keep things very, very simple if I can. And I say no a lot. That's how I schedule a lot of things. I say no. No is a full, complete sentence. There's no explanation involved. Just no. And I tell a lot of people no. Honestly, I really do. I tell a lot of people no, and it keeps my time very, very tight. And people respect that, because they know that I'm really busy. They know I'm trying to produce. They know I'm trying to do things, and I just say no. So work-life balance, you really have to just figure out what your outcome is, because once you know clearly what you're striving towards, it makes the decision process and all the other distractions kind of fade away, and you get focused. You know what you're working towards, and you're not being distracted by all of the noise that's out there. Maybe jumping on the phone every 2 seconds to see what's going on with somebody else's life, or whatever, or tied to your emails too much. So and that's how I stay balanced as much as I can. Do I get it right all the time? No, I don't. It's really difficult. But I always take time to get alone and figure out what direction I need to go and how to navigate the challenges or life that's pulling you all different direction. Because I realize that if I'm not centered, or if I'm out of whack, I can't steer the ship. If you're the one steering the ship and you're all out of whack, you're not going to steer the ship. So I go quiet. That's why sometimes I run in the morning first thing, take time for myself, or I walk, or I go swim, or do something that just gets my mind right. So I could tackle like the top 3 or 4 things that I want to accomplish for the day, but they're just outcomes. They're not goals. They're just outcomes. Like, for example, if I want to, maybe increase my income, right? I just focus on, okay, what's the one thing I need to do today to get me to that outcome? So, okay, maybe I need to spend 1 hour listening to a podcast, a guy speaking about, I don't know, sales. Okay, for example, okay, what's a new way of selling? How are they selling online? Let me listen to this one guy that's talking about sales. So that 1 hour could just be, okay, that's dedicated to my outcome. And over time that compounds and you get there. So that's how I stay balanced. I don't try to do it all, because I can't do it all. And that's how I do it. So you let people down. Yeah, people want things from you, because as you change and start focusing on that, you start changing, and then it affects people around you, because you're like, oh, you're not here anymore, or, oh, you're not cooking, or clean this or this, and because things are shifting now, so you have to deal with that. But as soon as you get clear with your outcome, and you communicate that with everybody around you, then they fall in line eventually. But there's some resistance usually at the beginning. That's a good question.
I think what you just shared there, that was a mouthful. Because really what you're talking about, there's so many things that would come out of that. The fact is that everybody has a particular persona. When you think about champion athlete, marathon runner, decathlon, we're talking about in our lives as well, we have the same kind. How do people see us? And every single thing that we do on a daily basis is basically writing down the legacy that we want to leave. So in sharing that there, I think that is really interesting, because this issue of saying no, and no being a complete answer, I think that is extremely powerful. How have you been, the fact that how have you been able to cope with regards to the challenges that you have had, the copability skills on a daily basis? I noticed in one of your clips you were going through a bad patch. I don't know whether it was
Yeah.
health. Yeah, but how have you been able to cope?
Yeah. The bad patches usually are relationship based because they just emotionally just consume you somehow. And I think that's how the devil likes to attack in our mind, just emotionally, just run our emotions out of whack. Um, so I mean, how I cope with it, really, I got help. I went and I saw a psychotherapist, a Christian therapist. She's a trained psychotherapist, but she was a Christian-based one, because I realized, it takes a sense of humility to understand, like, you know what, I really need help here, and I don't have the answers, and there's only so much that you can uncover for yourself and help yourself, and then you need other people to come in, and that's part of being mature, to lay down, put your guard down, and say, okay, I screwed up, I messed up, I make a lot of mistakes, I don't have it right, and you don't try to hide from your mistakes or the things that you're trying to keep in the closet. Make sure nobody knows about this stuff. We all have it, and that was consuming me. And I got help with a therapist to help me navigate some of these emotions and thoughts in my mind, to process them a little bit better, and to put the right perspective in my mind, because it was all out of perspective. And we're going back to the swimming analogy, the perspective drives performance. So my perspective needs to change in that one aspect of dealing and pulling myself out of that rut, day to day, daily. So what I did differently is I would visualize myself taking the thought that didn't sit right with me in my mind, and I would visualize it, taking it captive. So it says in the Bible, says, take every thought captive, right? So I took the thought captive. So it wasn't in my mind rambling around, becoming a big monster. And I just offered it up to the Lord. And my therapist, she said, just try that for a little while and see how you are. So when it doesn't sit well in your spirit, just take it captive before it goes crazy, and just say, okay, I'm giving this to you, and just release it. If you're not Christian, whatever, or if you don't believe in that stuff, just say, okay, I'm taking this thought captive and I'm just releasing it. Whether you write it down on paper or just visualize yourself just releasing it. So that process over a couple months helped me to release the thoughts and the things that were inside, and that's what helped me get through that rough patch. Because we all have it. And sometimes we go around with all of these dead fish, I call it sometimes, that are on our back, of the hurts and the pains that people have done to us throughout the day, and we're just carrying it around with us. So each day I practice that, to release the thoughts, release the emotions, release it, because it really wears you out, and then after a while it compounds, and that's what gets me in those rough patches. Yeah, it's a good question.
Any other question, guys? We really
I
want
don't have a question, but
ahead.
I have a comment in terms of changing from the inside, and the self-integrity, the small things, and how even the small things could impact not just you, but the lives of others. That really impacted me. Sometimes you have the little thing for your own self, but you think, well, it's no big thing, so it's not going to benefit in any way, so you just leave it aside. But really, you start this small thing, and eventually it becomes bigger and bigger until you get to the place that you want to go. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's how I started running. I was walking, and it was the small things. I walked 5K. It was a 5K walk run, and it was super small. I was just walking, and that's how it evolved. Everything I've ever did, it was the smallest things. Whether it be tiling a bathroom, and you want to cut the corner because you're like, I'm gonna just cut this edge, nonchalant, because it's right there in the corner. No one's gonna see it, but like, okay, I cut that corner and I didn't do a good job. But so it's those little things that wear you out, and so that's why I always do the best I can do, with even in the smallest details, because those are the building blocks. So once you get to the bigger things, you're going to need that. You're going to need that resolve, that determination, and that focus to see things through. You know, I heard a great quote. You know, everyone wants to be a CEO, but they're not, but their house is all out of whack. You know, so like you're going to run the company, but your house is all out of order, and your garage is all, you know, whatever. It's all unorganized. Your closet's unorganized. So, you know, you got to start with the small things. You got to pay attention to those things. You can get the big things. And that's really what I start with every day, everything that I do. So, yeah.
Tremendous, tremendous. Thank you so much, Rajesh, for coming this morning and for sharing with us. You know, I know there are lots of questions, and I believe that when people sit and listen to the stuff that you shared with us this morning, it will certainly impact us. You know, you could have told me no yesterday evening because I was putting it off and because I really believe that all of us, we have the opportunity and we have the ability to stamp greatness in our lives. And sometimes it's one little thing that's holding us back, some little thing. And, you know, most times we allow it to get bigger and bigger. And before you know it, you get to the winter of your life, you get to the end of your life, and you have not achieved it. And sometimes you shared, it's interesting that you shared, a lot of it has to do with how we see things and how we perceive things and what we believe. And then we allow this little thing that we didn't take captive to take control of our minds. And man, I've seen this, you know, and it has happened to most of us. And if we haven't really dealt with it. So I really want to take this opportunity to thank you from, you know, the Maritime Financial Group and the SRC Home for Champions. And I really like us to stay in touch because there are lots of stuff, because when I know there are things that we do, you know, one of the things that we have done as a team really with regards to giving back, and I'm looking at what it is you're doing. You know, I would certainly like to connect with regards to some of those things. And is Sead on? Is Sead on? Sead is the person, he is at the $1 Million Roundtable and he's on the panel for speakers, you know. And last year we were trying to talk to see whether we would have been able to get you down to the local $1 Million Roundtable forum that we have in Trinidad, you know. But sharing with us this morning and talking from the heart, you know, we really, really appreciate it. So God bless you richly and all the very best in all your endeavors.
Yeah, it's too, guys.
It's interesting.
Yeah, thank you.
His telephone voice recording says, what is it? I'm overcoming the world, or I'm doing the same. That's what he said on his voicemail, on his voice phone. So thanks a lot, Rajesh, and hope that we hook up soon. Angela, thanks for allowing your family to be on with us. All the very best. Take care. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Oh, can I get you're gonna record this, right? You're recording this?
It's on. Yeah, we have. Yeah, we will forward it.
Yeah, send it to me. I'd love to share it again. That'd be
Absolutely. Nice. We'll do that. Take care and all the very best.
All right, you too, guys. Enjoy your Saturday. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.